يشرفني اليوم أن أتولى إدارة هذا الحوار الشيق بإذن الله في هذا المجلس الكريم. الحضور الكرام، إن سلسلة المحاضرات المتنوعة التي ينظمها ويستضيفها مجلس صاحب السمو الشيخ محمد بن زايد آل نهيان تسهم بشكل متميز ومباشر في إثراء الحياة الثقافية والاجتماعية والعلمية في وطننا الغالي. وبهذه المناسبة يسعدني أن أقدم لكم اليوم الدكتورة والبروفيسورة انجيلا داكورث، أستاذة علم النفس في جامعة بنسلفانيا الأمريكية والحائزة على جائزة بقصر العبقرية لعام 2013. والدكتورة داكورث هي صاحبة كتاب العزيمة، قوة الشغف والمثابرة، الأكثر مبيعاً وفقاً للائحة نيويورك تايمز، وتلقي اليوم محاضرة بعنوان العزيمة الصادقة، الإلهام الحقيقي في علم النجاح، وتقدم من خلالها وصفة لأسباب وأسرار النجاح في الحياة اعتماداً على قوة العزيمة والتوظيف الأمثل للقدرات الشخصية للإنسان.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to this evening. Your Highnesses, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good evening, and I'm here to share something that I have learned about the answer to the question, why are some people, some countries, some organizations, some companies, why are they so much more successful than others? Working hard and finishing what you begin, actually not everyone does that. This is perseverance. It's actually already in your moral education program that I learned about this morning that's going all throughout the UAE. To do anything that's really worthwhile, anything that's really useful in the world, it just takes a long, long time. And children and adults need to develop not only perseverance, not only working hard, not only finishing despite setbacks, but also having a passion, having curiosity and a sense of purpose, not just for a week or a month, but for years. That passion is the less obvious half of grit. And passion begins with curiosity. Curiosity is simply wanting to know. For example, having 11 years of talks like this, where people are coming, thought leaders from all different fields, that is to stimulate your curiosity. Well, when you are stimulated to want to know something, it's actually interesting to you. Not that you have to know, or you're obliged to know, but you want to know. Curiosity lights up the parts of the brain that are associated with reward. When you are in a curious state of mind, you're interested, you want to know, the very beginning of passion, you actually learn faster, more easily, and actually the learning stays for longer. So for example, if you want to vastly increase the academic performance of children in the UAE on international tests or anything else, you have to ask yourself, how much curiosity is there in the usual classroom? Are children being asked to make a connection to something that they already are interested in or care about? Because when you do that, you open the floodgates of learning. It's actually just like almost as if you got smarter by actually being curious about what you're doing. For a moment, you just think about yourself, like what you were interested as a young boy or a young girl around that age. Were you interested in people? Were you interested in science? Were you interested in literature? Were you interested in history? Those early interests are a clue to what you might become interested in a more passionate and mature sense in adulthood. So that's the beginning of passion. But what happens later on in life, usually not until adulthood, is that curiosity is in combination with another powerful human motivation, and it's very different. Curiosity is what's interesting to you. When you ask yourself, is my work, is what I do meaningful? Does it have a purpose? Invariably, it's about whether it actually makes other people's lives better. And only when you have both the kind of childhood curiosity, it's just fun to learn about, but also it's meaningful, it helps other people, improves the lives of others. That is the combination that leads to full passion in the people that I study. Again, this usually happens in adulthood, but even when we do research on children as young as 12 or 13 years old, when you ask them to connect what they're learning, for example, in school, with some way in which they could help the world become a better place or make someone happier or better off, then you can see that their motivation to learn actually increases and their objective academic performance increases as well. So even though this tends to happen in full maturity, I don't think it's ever too early to ask people, you know, is this curious and interesting to you, but also can you see the connection to making the world and other people's lives better than they were before? Here's a graph of grit and this kind of purpose that is beyond the self, an other-directed purpose. And you see that they go hand in hand. In my research, this is among the strongest relationships that I have. In other words, I don't find people who are truly gritty, who do not have a sense of beyond the self, you know, the civic world, the global world, my neighborhood, whatever it is that's not me, that kind of motivation. To just teach the children of UAE, do you know how those famous people that you see in the movies or the Olympics, how did they get that way? It's very simple. They do this thing called practice, but they do it with discipline. They do it every single day, and they don't give up. What is growth mindset? What it is this, and when I describe it to you, you can tell yourself, do you have a growth mindset or a fixed mindset? A growth mindset is believing that abilities are changeable. A growth mindset is believing that human nature itself is malleable, that you can, in fact, get smarter, learn faster. That's what a growth mindset is. A fixed mindset is exactly the opposite. It's, you know, you feel like, oh, well, some students, they're like good at math, they're kind of naturals, so those are the kids who are always going to be good at math, or athletics, or really anything, public speaking, writing. A fixed mindset says that people don't change very much. Now, when things are going well, when you're succeeding, it doesn't matter which one you have. You can have a growth mindset or a fixed mindset. When you're winning, it doesn't matter. But when you're losing, when you're challenged, when you fail, when things don't turn out the way you tried to make them turn out, that's when it makes a difference. When you have a growth mindset, you respond to challenge, believing that there's a lesson learned. I think this idea has become so powerful, at least in American culture and really around the world, because there's so many people who are actually the opposite. They're thinking like, I want to hide my mistakes and I only want to be perfect, and if it's not going well, then I don't want to tell anyone. The most important thing probably about finishing what you begin is just deciding to keep going and to see, what did I learn, and now how do I proceed forward in the future? If you ask the question, how do you create a culture of growth mindset, you can look at these questions. We studied growth mindset in schools. It's just one place where there's a culture, but of course every country has a culture, every family has a culture, every company, every organization. When you identify cultures where learning is actually the most valuable thing, where understanding is more important than actually getting the quote-unquote right answers on the test, when mistakes are okay, as long as there's a lesson learned, what you see over time is this. This is data from a one-year longitudinal study. We find that more of a growth-oriented culture, instead of looking like you're smart, actually learning, that predicts increases in grit. And that, in turn, predicts increases in academic performance, objectively measured from school records. What grit is not just perseverance, it's also passion. Many countries that I visit already have a culture of hard work, and maybe they're beginning to have a culture of growth and resilience. But passion, to me, is really missing from so many. If you want your young people to grow up to be truly the best in the world, they have to be curious about something personally, and they have to see it as purposeful. What's the recipe, then, for grit? It is really four things. Passion comes from interest and purpose. Perseverance comes from daily expert practice, and a growth mindset, so that when you do have a challenge, you rise to the challenge, and you learn, and you keep going. every person can grow, every person can learn to work hard and practice, every person is interested in something, and every person, I think, truly is motivated by purpose, by a desire to make the lives of other people better. As you probably already know, I think culture and cultural identity, believing that because you are from UAE, you're a different kind of person, or from another country, of course, I think it's extremely powerful. One could argue that culture is maybe the most important determinant of human behavior and motivation. So then if you ask the question, across the world, what do you see about grit? I think there are certain cultures who have actually kind of owned this identity of perseverance. And in particular, Finland, they have a word in Finnish called sisu, which the direct translation is your intestines, your insides. If you're born in Finland, you believe that because you're Finnish, you're stronger than everyone else, that you're going to outlast everyone, that no one could outwork you. Now, of course, there are many countries near Finland that, you know, why would Finland be any different? But I had a graduate student from Finland. She said, you know, really, it's truly when you're even a young child in Finland, you're told you have sisu and you're special. And they also have a growth mindset. So when a young Finnish child tries to do something, you know, tries to win a race and they fail, and they try again, and they try again, their parents will say to them, use your sisu, and when they do, they say, now my sisu is stronger. So I think there's an opportunity, I think, for developing cultural identities. I have not yet seen a country that has truly embraced both perseverance and passion. In about the year 2000, economic research, including that of Nobel Prize winner Jim Heckman, showed definitively that broadly grit, self-control, curiosity, empathy, tolerance, emotional intelligence, what you could call character, right, broadly construed. This could be at least as important as IQ or even your family socioeconomic status in determining your life outcomes. Since that time, now we're almost 2 decades later, every country in the world, every country that is working with the World Bank, every country that is on, you know, any continent, they're all now interested in this work. What I saw today was that I think this is the only country that I know of that said, okay, we're going to do it, and we're going to do it right now. So we're going to have a curriculum, it's going to be an hour a week, and it's going to be integrated from every age level so that, you know, every week from the time, I guess, you're 5, you know, you'll learn that. I don't know of anybody else. What I do know is this, and it's a suggestion. There is science. You know, we know actually how to increase self-control. We have an idea of how to increase curiosity. We know the science of practice. I think the new, you know, learning will be how do we take that intuition that these things matter and marry it with scientific research so that your children are really getting the most effective instruction and character that is possible. I'll tell you the story of Character Lab briefly, and I do think there's maybe a metaphor for what you might consider, you know, I'm struck by how interdisciplinary your ministries are and how there are people working together across art and science, etc. It's very similar to Character Lab. So I started Character Lab as a scientist. I was a teacher before, but now I'm a scientist, and I started it with 2 educators. And now we have in Character Lab, it's like an NGO, so I'm part of a university in the United States. This is separate. We have designers and artists and scientists and classroom educators all working together on character education. And if you asked me what would my recommendation be as you think about the future of, you know, your goals for, you know, 2021, 2071, I think interdisciplinary work. If you have artists working with scientists, working with educators, it's tremendously more powerful than anyone working on their own. And it's hard too, because they have totally different ways of approaching anything. But really, I think that is the future. And the top universities in my country are all now structuring their elite programs to be truly interdisciplinary so that it's not, you know, silos like that. That's what Character Lab is trying to do. It's, I think, generally probably useful for other people as well. What can you do to make the children of UAE grittier? I think I'll give you an idea from my own family. My husband, who's here with me today, we have 2 children. And when they were very young, I knew I wanted them to be grittier. So what did we do? Well, we made a rule. Rules are very powerful. And this rule was called the hard thing rule. Everyone in the family had to do something that was hard, meaning it had to fulfill those requirements of practice, even when they were 5 years old. They had to do something that required they identify a skill they're trying to practice, focus 100%, and get feedback and start over again. It can be music, it can be sports, it can be math, it can be art, but they had to pick something that was hard, even when they were 5 years old. And of course, the parents in the family had to do hard things too. So anyway, my job is pretty hard, so that was, and my husband's job is even harder. So we said that that's our hard thing. But then there's a second requirement. We said you cannot quit in the middle. If you're running, in the track team, and in the middle you're like, oh, I don't like this anymore. That actually happened to my daughter. She said, this isn't fun for me anymore. And also I'm terrible. She got very nervous before the races. And we said, you can quit after the end of the season. So I think it would be good advice. Like every child should have to do something. And when they commit to to finish it, they need to finish it. So it's hard and they have to finish. And there's the third part of the rule, and that's it. And the third part of the rule is that the child has to have choice. And again, I think if I look across the globe, some countries are better than this than others, but I think if you look at, who becomes Bill Gates, right? Who becomes truly great at what they do? When you look at what they were like when they were children, they had a lot of choice. So in our family even, we said, look, even when you're 5 years old, you can choose. Do you want to do ballet or do you want to do piano? Do you want to do violin or do you want to do gymnastics? So those are the 3 parts of the hard thing. It requires practice, real practice. You cannot quit in the middle. And ultimately, the child themselves can choose. I actually think that could be scaled up across an entire country. How do you activate the part of your brain that you're truly curious? Probably the best studied activity is this. If you think about what children have to learn, they have to learn mathematics, they're learning writing, they're learning many things. Maybe they're not truly interested in all of them. The exercise that has been shown the most reliable for increasing curiosity is simply they write down what they're already having to do. You could also do this with adults, like what you have to do for your job. You write it down on one side of the paper. On the other side, you write about what you're already interested in, your hobbies, maybe your relationships. It really can be anything that's already engaging to you. And then you just draw lines. You don't draw lines to everything, but you try to make some connection. The activity is called Build Connections, because what makes people interested is a connection to something that they already had some kind of seed of interest in. So I do think it's possible to maybe make the work that has to get done more relevant personally. When I went to school, my teachers almost never did this. They just taught you, like, this is math. They never said, like, how is this related to what you're interested or what you're doing or your family or your neighborhood. That simple activity only takes a couple of minutes, but when you do that, then the child understands, oh, that's why I'm doing this. And then their mind, their brain is open. Technology is both, right? So if you have a child who's very interested in learning to program computers, actually, if you have a child or an adult who's interested in anything, there is nothing you cannot learn on the internet right now for free. Really nothing. I mean, that's the way the world has changed. It used to be that you could only learn it at this school, if you take this course. You can learn anything if you try and if you have curiosity and perseverance. So on the one hand, that suggests that technology should increase passion and increase maybe perseverance. On the other hand, there's a totally different story for technology. The thing about technology is that you can do anything you want, but you can also go anywhere else. So what's easy to do when you have an iPad or a phone is, and this is what most young people do, basically they just do easy things like social media, and they just like go off, and then as soon as they get bored, the moment they get bored, they go off to something else. You know, they watch a different video, they play a different game. So technology could actually lead to deep learning and the pursuit of something, you know, in depth. It can also lead to the opposite. The question is, how is it going to be used? And I think nobody has quite figured that out.
It's a great, great pleasure to have you with us, Professor. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Pleasure's all
Thank you
ours.
for your time. Thank you, Your Excellency.